Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm sitting here in the Guildhall Museum making some videos to reach out to you until the time you can come and visit us again. This video is part 2 of a pair all about World War II. So if you haven't seen part 1 yet, go and do that and come back. Now, at the start of World War II, the British government, like everybody else, didn't know what was going to happen. They had to guess. They guessed there might be gas attacks. They were wrong. They guessed there would be bombing, and there they were right. But they also realised that gas and bombing might not be the only things that brought danger to the British people. They were also worried about hunger. Because just like today, a long time ago, Britain used to get a lot of its food from other countries. And that's much more difficult to do if there is a huge international war going on. So the British government was worried that people in Britain would simply run out of food. Or at least the food supply would drop so much that food became really expensive. So only people with lots of money could afford to eat. So what the British government decided to do is make sure that whatever food there was should be shared out equally between everybody. And that was called rationing. Rationing was simply a way of making sure that however much money you had, you would have the same amount of food as the person next door, or the person across the road, or the person in the next town. And the way they managed to do that was with these ration books. These were given to every single person in the country. Children had special ones because they were allowed slightly different food. This is what you needed when you went to do your shopping. You would still need your money, just like you had done before the war, but you needed the book as well. So when you paid for your food, some kinds of food also needed a coupon, which is kind of like a stamp. And when you bought your tea, the shopkeeper would ask for the ration book and either cross off or tear out your coupon. And once you'd used all the coupons, you couldn't have any more tea, no matter how much money you had, at least until the next month when you could turn the page over and use the new coupons. That's how it worked. Everybody had a ration book, everybody got the same. Now this is the thing that people usually remember, but actually it's only half the system. This is the other bit. This is what the shopkeeper has. This is a real shopkeeper's register that was used in Gillingham during World War II. Now, you might have been used to registers at school. This is exactly the same thing. The register at school has the names of all the children who are there on any particular day. This has the names of all the people who are allowed to shop for food at this grocer's store. I love this thing because when you open it, it's just like you've walked into the shop in 1940 and the shopkeeper has pulled out the register and he flicks through it, or she flicks through it to find your name. It's even still got the bits of paper inside that customers have to fill in to join the register. And just like a school register, it's arranged alphabetically. So look, here is the page for people who begin with G. And you might be able to see that alongside each name, it says yes underneath the kinds of food that they want to buy from this shop. You can't buy the food unless you're in the book. That's the way it works. So you see, the idea is that the shopkeeper only supplies his or her shop with enough food for the people in here. No more, no less. So there's no extra and no waste. That's the secret to rationing. This goes with this. Now, rationing actually made people really healthy. At the end of the war, people, generally speaking, were healthier than they had been before, because with rationing, you ate less meat, less fat, and more vegetables, because you could grow the vegetables yourself in the garden. If you did that, you could eat as many of them as you liked. But people sometimes found it a bit challenging, because they were cooking in new kinds of ways with food they hadn't really eaten much of before. So some companies produced special wartime cookbooks to make the most of those foods. But some of the recipes in here, they're not quite like the sort of thing you might be used to eating today. One of my favourites, which I saw in another book, is tomato soup with no tomatoes in. But the one I want to read to you is in here somewhere. Brains au gratin. That means brains with cheese. Now, I know you want to know how to make this, so here's what you do. You need some calves or sheep's brains. You soak the brains in salt. Then you put them into 2 pints of hot water with a little vinegar and bring to the boil. You boil them for 15 minutes. You remove the skin, etc. And you break them up into small pieces. Then you put cheese on it and you eat it. Brains au gratin. So rationing was very much a part of people's daily lives. And it wasn't just food, it was clothes as well. Same thing, but for clothes. This is good because you can see the coupons still inside. You had to save up the coupons for ages and ages if you wanted to buy a whole suit or a big coat. But this was a way of making sure that Britain didn't run out of materials for clothes. They were shared out between everybody. The government even made sure that the design of clothes didn't waste any materials or work to get them made. And it created a special type of clothing. They called it utility clothing, which means kind of useful clothing. And this is an example from our collection. It's not a dress, it's something called a pinafore. It's like an apron that goes over your head. The nice thing about it is it's still got its utility label on it. CC 41, World War II utility clothing. I must be getting close to my 10 minutes. But I don't want to finish without showing you a World War II joke. Because you see, sometimes talking about this subject is difficult because this was a very dangerous, dark time. People were hurt. People died. So I want to leave you with a happier thought. Something that helped people smile and get through the difficult times. Trouble is, to understand this joke, you need to know 2 things. You need to know what's inside here, and you need to know what this object is. So have a look inside. It says Adolf in Poland. Now this is Adolf Hitler. Bad man. This is the man who invaded Poland and therefore brought Britain into World War II. This is the man who's trying to kill you every night by sending his aeroplanes over to bomb your town. So to make you feel better, you've bought this object with him inside. But what is it? It's not a teacup. It's actually a small version of something, generally speaking, that would be much bigger, that would go, not in a cupboard, but under your bed, for you to use in the night. You see, during World War II, many people, they didn't have toilets in their home. The toilet was outside, probably down the end of the garden. What you've got here is a small version, a copy, of a potty. A potty that people would use in the night so they didn't have to walk down to the toilet outside. Maybe it's one for a dolly. So you could look at it and imagine using the potty and feeling much, much better. See you soon.